Welcome listeners to Artist Tales, the podcast that features and celebrates artists from different walks of life. I'm your host, Heather Martin, and in this episode, I'm chatting with Jordon Blake, who's a self-taught photographer based in London, England. Welcome, Jordon.
Hi, Heather. Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
It's lovely to have you. I've been really looking forward to speaking with you. Tell me a little bit more about your background and how you got into photography.
Yeah, so my background is, my heritage is St. Vincent and the Grenadines, which is based in the Caribbean. I have 5 siblings, so 2 brothers, 3 sisters. I'm the second youngest. So with that, but they're all half brothers, half sisters. So it's been a very unique upbringing in that sense as well. I grew up in London, but I studied geography in Swansea. So that also gave me a new perspective to life and allowed me to kind of get out of my comfort zone and see things I wouldn't normally get to see. Throughout that time as well, I used to play basketball a lot. So from the age of 5 up until sort of start of lockdown, I was still playing basketball. So I've been pretty active and out. Not too sociable, but I was always around people. And what kind of made me get into that photography was during the Black Lives Matter protests, one of my friends took a picture of me and then I posted it on Instagram, and then a year later, Britney Spears reposted it.
Wow.
Which is kind of weird because I don't know how she found the picture when all I had the hashtag on was BLM. So that was something else in itself. From that, I was trying to start up a sort of social enterprise anyway, which kind of focused on societal issues such as financial literacy, emotional intelligence, and generational trauma, generational wealth. And I wanted to do photo shoots to kind of coincide with the themes of that. So I thought it would be good for me to learn a bit about photography. So when it comes to the photo shoots, I have a little bit more insight into what to do and perhaps do some behind the scene shots of it as well. And then when I came out to do the photography and showing people the pictures from it, they're like, oh, you're actually pretty good. So I thought I'd try it and then see what else I could do with it. So that's how photography kind of came into the picture for me.
It sounds like you didn't really do any courses or anything. It was very much pick up the camera and just do it.
Yeah, definitely. And then after that, I started watching YouTube videos a bit to understand the difference in aperture and things like that. But I feel like I'm very much a trial and error kind of person. So I'll take pictures and then I'll keep going until I kind of understand what to do in those kind of environments or settings, and then what the camera does in that sense.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's very trial and error.
Yeah.
Along with the YouTube videos as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Are you still doing the social enterprise, or are you just solely focusing on the photography now?
Yeah, so I'm still doing the social enterprise, and the photography, I want to be a part of it as well. Because the whole concept behind the social enterprise is that kind of taking out what I've learned through life, and that getting out your comfort zone is the biggest thing into almost growing and developing who you are as a person. So the photography side of it is what I want to be good enough at, that I could kind of start an agency almost, where I could have photographers or models, people that want to aspire to be models, and kind of use my platform to kind of share that with them and help them grow in that however they feel like they need to grow, really.
You mentioned you're on the BLM protests and movement, doing a lot of those protests and things. How much of that is influencing what you're doing now, whether it was the photography or your social enterprise?
I would say that whole protest was the biggest trigger into doing what I'm doing now. Because before that, I didn't really feel like I cared too much about anything. But it was only when I went out there and actually saw everyone come together in a way that I didn't actually feel like was possible. And after the Britney Spears post as well, it kind of made me want to have conversation with people and find out more about their stories and their journeys and what kind of things they're interested in. So when it came to photography, I realized it was such a good way to connect with people and kind of find out more about what kind of journey they're on, as well as where my journey fits in alongside with that as well.
So it sounds like the BLM protests and then Britney retweeting kind of sparked a few things for you.
Yeah, definitely.
For the photography in particular, how much of it is influenced, let's say, by the social enterprise or other things, or, because it almost is like they're intertwined, but two separate things in a way?
Yeah. I think that's the best thing about the kind of society that we're in today is that everything is very much content-based anyway. So with the social enterprise, there's also a few other things that I do as well that kind of ties into this as well. So I also make music.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And on my day job, a career development advisor. So at the moment, I'm writing a career development program for the underrepresented groups within my company. So that also involves a lot of talking about like emotions or emotional intelligence or like financial literacy to an extent of finding out why we have the kind of problems that we do. So I think it's good that I have a lot of different things that I'm trying to do, but it will have the same kind of core in the sense that my main motivation is just wanting to help people and kind of help people find themselves in the way that they kind of want to be found or that perceived within their life.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like it's kind of different facets of helping people.
Yeah.
And I quite liked what you said about, people's journeys. You're interested in people's stories and that sort of thing. And certainly what you do in your day job along with the photography. And I don't know what kind of music you make, but, I'm sure that can also you can weave that in there. I guess tell me a bit more about that and also kind of the engagement people have with, your music or photography or that, kind of your artistic side.
Yeah. So in terms of music, I've been writing, I started off writing poetry when I was about 5, 6.
Wow.
And then, so when I was 5 and 6, and then as time kind of went on, I started writing songs. And because my brother started producing music as well, it was easier for me to go around with him and then go to the studio and record songs. So the kind of songs that I've always tended to make, because at first it was just a way to express how I'm feeling. So I'll say it still pretty much is like that, but it's not so much me venting. I'm starting to learn more about the structures of songs and different layers like that as well. I'd say that my music is pretty honest in the sense that I'm just putting myself in the song and I'm not trying to portray anything that I'm not trying to be in that sense. I've only really started recording properly last year, but then I have my third performance next month.
Where are you performing?
It's in a place called Moustache Bar in Dalston.
That's your third then?
Yeah.
Wow. And what size of audience do you think you'll get?
I would say it's roughly around about 20 to about 30-year-olds maybe. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I guess going back to the question about how people kind of engage with you, both with the photography and with the music, how do people engage with you? And are there differences between the two mediums or the two types of creativity?
I'd say there's definitely a difference with it in the sense that as a musician, you have to actively put yourself out there and try and outcompete in a sense to get noticed or get attention in that sense. Whereas photography, because everything's pretty much content based anyway, there's so many different other avenues you could go to connect with people. But then at the same time, music and photography goes together very well because there's always artists looking for like a photo cover or album cover or something like that. So I think it makes it easier for me to connect with musicians from a photography background and then bring in the music side later, to like work with them as well. So I think that's definitely helped me branch out a lot more and gain confidence on both sides.
I guess it gives you two perspectives.
Yeah, definitely.
I find it interesting that you're doing album covers because in this day and age of streaming,
Yeah.
like I am a bit older than you, and when they were still, even with CDs and vinyl and that sort of thing, the thing was the vinyl cover. Whereas now,
Yeah.
the impression I had with this, Spotify and other streaming services is that has gone by the wayside. But it's interesting that that's still a thing. Is it still? Do you think it's still as popular, or do you think it's changed? I don't know if you'd necessarily know, or how much you're into it, but just the kind of current state of play.
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely still relevant, but it's changed in such a way that it's a lot more easier to get the artwork out for an album in a sense that all you have to do is take a picture and upload it instead of going out and trying to print it and finding good quality in that sense. So yeah, it's definitely like made it a lot more accessible for artists to do.
It sounds like you have a lot of different facets to what, really what you said earlier about wanting to help people. And, part of that is listening to people's stories and surfacing them. And certainly the work you're doing is with people in underrepresented groups. I guess, going back to your social enterprise and sort of the literacy and stuff. And I guess, too, there's an element of helping people navigate going from school to work and navigate some of those things, whether it's financial literacy or just, in your first job, it's actually learning, how to be in the work world as well. So I'm just wondering whether some of this artistic stuff can feed into some of that less artistic things.
That's something that I've learned has definitely been like a big help on both sides. So my day job has learned me how to look at my creative stuff from a business perspective. And when it comes to dealing with issues within work, it's allowed me to think more out of the box into a creative way, into thinking, how can I make this more applicable to the situation or that individual? So I think both very much complement each other in that sense, that it's allowed me to have a different perspective than the people that I'm normally around.
And I'm just amazed that you've gotten onto something so quickly, that you can harness those different aspects of it. In terms of influences, particularly in the, artistic side of things, who or what influences you? Like what sorts of things if are there people, or are there, there could be musical influences or other artists, but what kind of influences you?
Yeah, I would say my biggest influences have always came from life experiences, things that I've been through myself. For a long time, I've always had very vivid dreams. So when it comes to photography or music and things like that, I'm able to visualize things before I'm able to take it. So that's always helped. Other people that's kind of influenced me, I would say, would be, I'd say other musicians, and kind of hearing their stories, or a lot of public speakers as well, that's kind of had their journeys and how they got there, or the kind of struggles that they faced. And I think one of the biggest continuous influences is just the people that I meet through what I do creatively or at work. Because every time, it's like every day I wake up, I would always be a different person because I have information that I didn't have the day before. So it's that kind of knowledge that allows me to look at a new situation from a different perspective. So every day will always be different, even if I do the same things. And it's just knowing that anybody could have the slightest influence or biggest influence, depending on how much I'm willing to listen to them and be open to what they're saying without kind of judging it from my own perspective.
So it sounds like just being open to kind of life experiences and other people's experiences as well. And how much does that reflect in your photography? Because you mentioned earlier that certainly with the music, it's very personal. Whereas now you're saying some of the influences are, could be people day to day or other, speak or that sort of thing. So how much of yourself is in, let's say, the photography versus maybe sort of reflection of the person you're trying to take a picture of, or whatever message you're trying to convey?
So in terms of photography, I'd say that it's easy to see that I work with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds. But one thing that I feel like I fall short on within my photography is that sometimes I don't necessarily have a concept behind it, but more I'm just capturing the moment of it. So when it comes to wanting to have a deep meaning behind the photo, it's not so much that I had an idea beforehand, but it's rather that I'm just in that present moment. I'm taking a picture of what I see or what that person chooses to show me in that sense. So it's always more just going with the flow than having a deep rooted meaning behind it.
One thing I have found, because I'm also a photographer, one thing I have found is there are a lot of photographers, and I presume it, maybe a lot of artists, but my experience has been more with the photographers. There's been a lot of photographers who are very project-based, kind of going back to what you're saying of they have a theme or there's something they're trying to convey. And I find that personally very difficult. I tend to be more of what you've just described of being in the moment. And it's not to say that I don't have themes in what I'm taking. Like there's certain elements that kind of I'm drawn to, but I'm not necessarily going out to do a project. And I'm just wondering what your process is. Do you prefer, more project stuff or conceptual things, or do you like the spontaneity or serendipity of taking pictures?
Yeah, definitely the spontaneity of it. Normally, someone will just approach me, or I'll ask people that I find on Instagram if they'll be up to do a photo shoot, because I'm seeing something on their page that's different than what I've done. And where I'm still fairly new to photography, I'm still trying to find out what I can and can't do. So I'm always trying to find little avenues that I haven't tried before. And just liking the challenge in itself, really, of not knowing how things are going to come out, but getting there and being able to still be able to do something with it.
And how much How much does that relationship with the people you're taking or working with, how much does that play or factor in or influence your pictures? Is it a matter of that kind of relationship with that person? How much of it is you and how much of it is them?
I'll say it depends on the kind of shoot it is, whether they're just trying to shoot for content or they have a specific purpose for why they want to do a photo shoot. So I've done one for someone's portfolio or for the modeling portfolio. So I knew that that's something I'd have to look up and research and find out what kind of shots are needed for that kind of thing. Whereas a lot of the street photography I've done is more just playing around with what we have in that environment and then seeing what works and what doesn't work, or just going into a shop and asking, "Oh, hey, can we shoot here for a minute?" and seeing how that goes and see what works with that. I think that in itself has definitely been like a big learning curve for me, for knowing how well people are receptive of photographers and how much freedom you actually have to go out and shoot anywhere, really.
Yeah, I find that as well. And that's probably why I've shied away from doing people on the street, kind of street photography, because there have been a few times when I've been told off.
Yeah.
Or, they kind of gotten a bit annoyed with me, which is, when I was feeling a bit more shy, it was just like,
Yeah.
And I just have focused. I do more people shots now, but I try not to be too obvious.
Yeah.
Going back to what you're saying about being spontaneous, how do you work that in? Or is that more of if you're just going out for personal projects or just going out to take personal pictures?
So if I'm going to take pictures for myself, I might just go around for a drive somewhere and then see something that might catch my eye, and I'll go around, take a few pictures with that, and then play about with that as well. But then if it's when I'm working with someone, it's almost like we bounce ideas off of each other whilst we take photos. So we'll do one and I'll show them what it looks like. They'll be, "Oh, let's try this." I'll be like, "Okay, how about we try this and see what that looks like?" And then we kind of play about with that, and then after a while we have like a good amount of photos. So it's been good in that sense.
Have you had much of an opportunity to do exhibitions, or does that kind of interest you at all? Or is it more just working collaboratively with people or doing your pictures for your social enterprise or with musicians?
Yeah, I would definitely want to do an exhibition at some point. I'd like to know how to get into doing that, and then that way I'll be able to have something that will be like a new challenge in that sense, that I would want to learn almost the processes of that as well. So I think if the opportunity ever came up, I'll definitely go for it.
I guess my next two questions are probably related. I mean, the first thing I was thinking of I'd like to ask you is who would you like to work with if you're going to work collaboratively?
I wouldn't say I have a name as such, but I would definitely love to work with someone who's done photography like for a long period of time, who does like commercial or like product shots. 'Cause that's something I've not really had the chance to get into. As well, people that work in like the filming or production like industry as well. Because I think I'm starting to get interested into like cinematic shots and kind of learning how that process kind of looks like. So I think those two kind of areas interest me as well.
Yeah, and there's certainly overlap between still photography and cinematography as well.
Yeah.
So I know there are photographers who do both, or they're into the camera, like, moving images as well as the stills. So I think, probably a bit of a jump, but it's not insurmountable.
Yeah, yeah.
My next question, which I thought was a bit kind of related to what I asked you, is do you have any upcoming projects that you're wanting to work on or that's in the pipeline?
In terms of projects, in the process currently of getting a website made up for my photography, with the idea of showcasing that other photographers' work as well and giving like a little biography about what they do. And I was having talks about a project with someone from another country, and the idea behind it was that we're going to kind of shoot the same kind of idea but in different countries to see what it looks like in that sense. So I think that might be the next project I do photography wise.
And what do you think the end product of that might be? I'm just thinking, are you looking to do, for instance, an exhibition or a book, or what's kind of the end goal?
It's funny you say the thing about a book, but I'll get into that. So the end goal of that is right now to almost like promote myself as a photographer in different countries as well, and kind of learning how to fully like collaborate with someone and come together to have an idea to see what that would then look like as a project. With the social enterprise side of it as well, in the process of kind of writing up a plan of having like a blog series which coincides with the photography. And hopefully at the end of it, it could be something that could be compiled into like a short book almost. So that's something else that I'm trying to kind of put together as well.
It sounds like you have a few things in the pipeline, a few ideas in the pipeline, and it does sound really interesting. And one thing I find with books is, although we live in a very digital age, people do like books, like the hardcover, to actually sit down and look at something.
Yeah, I feel like I'm the same as well. As much as I'm always on my phone and everything, I think it's nice to just have a book and have no distractions, because I tried to use a Kindle before, and it's so easy to just go back online and be connected to the internet or be connected to the wider world. So I think a book is definitely something where you could just almost hibernate and just be lost inside something with no distractions. I appreciate it from that side.
While we're talking, one thing I was thinking of, I wanted to ask you, is how much your own background and also working with what you do with the social enterprise and your day job and that sort of thing, and certainly working with more underrepresented groups, how much that influences either your photography or even your music.
Yeah, I'd say it is my music and my photography. Everything that I've learned through life is something that's had an impact on me or influenced me in some kind of way. The people that I work with at work or the people I have around me outside of work as well, just being able to hear their problems that they go through and almost realize that we're all having the same kind of problem, but no one's able to actually talk about it. So we're all looking at the same thing through a different lens. And it's like, how do you remove those barriers so that people could actually see that it all comes down to us not being able to be an individual, but rather than living up to labels that society painted on us without even our permission. So it's almost that kind of journey that I've been trying to take, and getting people out of their comfort zone to try new things and realize that whatever their preconceptions of it was before could be completely wrong if they just allow themselves that little bit of freedom to open their mind. And I think once they kind of find that it's not what they thought, it opens your mind up to so much more opportunities as well. So I think that's almost like the driving force behind it.
One thing that I was thinking of while you're talking about those, challenging stereotypes or opening people's minds is, how important is it for you to have that representation of, being able for people to be able to see themselves in pictures? Because, for such a long time, art and photography in the West anyway, or like in Europe, has been very dominated by straight white men. How much influence is there from people you work with, but also how important is it for you to have that kind of representation so people can actually see themselves?
Yeah. So I'd say I understand the importance of representation so that people can see themselves. But at the same time, I feel like through my experience of life, it's like you can't necessarily tell what someone is just based on their skin. Because like my sister, one of my half sisters, has like fair skin and blue eyes, and she spent her life trying to prove to people that we're actually related because of our skin color difference. So there's so many different layers to it that I feel like you can't just look at skin color or can't look at one aspect of their life and say, oh, this is who they are, because you don't actually know who people are until you're actually able to talk to them and hear their story. So I think just being able to break these barriers down and have that individualness, because people are unique in the same way. So it's just allowing people to have that understanding, really.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because there's a book I'm reading. Is it Akala, Natives by Akala, I think his name is?
Yeah, yeah.
And he talks, and I'm not finished it yet, but he talks about, his mum is white, his dad is black. He's mixed race, but he's seen as black.
Yeah.
And it's very, when you were talking just now, it made me think of the binariness of, it's hard for people to understand. I guess another way to phrase it is, it's challenging when there's the nuance. It's challenging, because we like things in neat boxes.
Definitely. And like, you have a this or you're that, and then that's it. There's really no in between. If you're not white, then you must be black almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because one of my episodes in the first series was with Nina Franco from Brazil.
Yeah.
And she's considered white in Brazil, but over here in England, she's considered black.
Yeah.
Because she's lighter skinned black. And we talked about colorism. So it's really opened my eyes in many ways. I mean, it's not that I wasn't aware of, mixed race and that sort of thing, but I think it's just my own journey of realizing how nuanced things are.
Definitely. I think that's an important thing as well, because I feel like no matter what age you are, you're always in a position to learn something new or change a perception on something. But I feel like a lot of people don't really allow themselves room for growth in that sense. And they're really stuck with like an old mindset. That's something that I've kind of realized as well through doing a social enterprise, is that there's a lot of intergenerational teaching. So in a sense that what my grandparents taught my mum are the same kind of things that they taught me. But society's changed so much that the lessons that I'm learning now no longer really apply to what goes on around me. And it's almost like, it's almost like I have to teach them in a like opposite way almost, so that we could kind of get some kind of progress.
Yeah, you're right. I think, I've become much more aware of, for instance, the evolution of language. And if you think about, our parents' age or grandparents' age, talking about skin color has evolved,
Yeah.
where, certainly in this country, calling someone colored was acceptable,
Yeah.
at one stage, where it's not now. So yeah, and it's interesting you say that, and I'm glad you've recognized it, because I think I'm starting to realize that myself,
Yeah.
particularly of white people who perhaps are struggling. Certainly the people that I think I know don't want to be racist, but it's just struggling with the language and trying to keep up.
Definitely. Yeah. It's funny that you say that as well, 'cause I think that's something that I've realized working in the company that I work in now, as we currently have like a big problem with representation. So out of like 500,000 employees, only about 4% of them come from minority ethnic background. So there's a lot of people that's been there a good 20, 30 years, and they're just so out of touch with society in that sense that they could say things which could inherently be racist, but they don't know any better because that's what they were taught. So that's something that I've kind of learned as well. That's like, you can't be mad at everyone in the sense that sometimes they genuinely don't know any better. And by you getting angry at it, it's blocking that barrier for communication to allow them to grow and develop their thought process in that sense.
I agree. And I think, and I sometimes get a sense of, that's where they're at, and those, their views, it's quite frankly been taught, and it's never been challenged. And, how do you approach it? Yeah, you can be angry, but, is that really going to work?
Yeah.
And it's almost like, as they start getting to know people who are different, they maybe start challenging in their own heads some of the things they've learned, But it's hard. It's hard,
Definitely.
because a lot of this stuff is ingrained.
Yeah. I think something that taught me about how people communicate as well as like how I've been in my relationships. Because I think there's a lot of things that I've been taught that when sometimes I'm in a disagreement with my partner or an argument happens, I feel myself shutting down. And mentally, I know I want to communicate, but it's just how do I find a way to communicate without being defensive and feeling like I'm being understood, but at the same time willing to kind of hear what they're saying as well and understand it from their point of view without feeling like I'm being attacked personally. So I think that is definitely something that I could see being applied to like the wider scope of having communication issues and barriers in that sense.
And change is slow.
Yeah, definitely. Does it happen overnight?
No, definitely not. Before I get on to my last question, have you faced any challenges? And if you have faced challenges, what are they?
I'd say I've had depression. I felt like it was kind of started at a young age, but I didn't really know what it was up until university, where I kind of learned a bit more about it. Or when I was, like, as I was saying before, that my songs before were just a way for me to express how I'm feeling. And it's only when I was listening over like songs from the span of about 10 years, I'm always kind of talking about the same problems. And I've realized that a lot of feelings that I had kind of delved from the relationships I had with people. And I always had a pattern of like people like leaving my life or like losing someone close to me. And it's almost like I had what's it called, attachment issues in that sense. And it's only really in the last 2, 3 years that I was able to kind of come out of it, because I always have times where I have slips and my mood will be like down for a week or two and then I'll come back up, but I'll never really be like completely happy. So that was something that kind of like challenged me in a sense. But then at the same time, it allowed the biggest like room for growth, because I believe that like the man doesn't know any difference between like depression and being like extremely happy, but it's just like almost like a measurement of emotion. So as low as you can feel just as high in the other way. So that was like one thing that I've kind of had to like challenge myself with and learn to listen and be open to being vulnerable in order to get that understanding. There's also like a sense of like anxiety as well, because I used to be very like shy and like withdrawn. But then after the whole Britney Spears thing happened, it kind of like threw me into like the forefront. So there's a lot of things I had to deal with, and like a lot of people that I was talking to at that time that kind of made me kind of like ground myself in a sense and finding out how much I actually know, or like how much I actually have to offer myself and people around me. So once I was able to kind of get through that section, I kind of felt more myself in a sense. I'd say that those are bigger challenges. So
Where does your art fit into this? Fit into your challenges. So, did it help you? Were you able to work through?
yeah, so I'd say art has definitely helped because so when it comes to music, I would hear like an instrumental and I think about how it would make me feel, or like what kind of image can I paint with it, or what kind of image does it paint for me. So when it comes to writing a song, it's almost like I'm describing what I could see, and I think that I'm very good at picturing something in my mind before portraying it. Portraying it? Yeah, I would say portraying it. And it's just having that connection with myself to my surroundings as well. So when it comes to photography, if they wanted to show like a certain kind of mood, there's a lot of things like that I think about that, or what does pain look like, or what does someone that's in love look like. 'Cause I feel like I'm very attentive as well to like facial expressions. Because a lot of the time when I talk to people, I always like make eye contact. So I did like a lot of like facial cues you could pick up. Like even if they're subtle, it could still like show emotion or their body language. So I think because my depression always came from a place of not being understood or not being heard, it's kind of made me want to understand people a lot more. So that's kind of helped me kind of realize things in people, or like see how they're feeling just based on body language, which I think is a key factor when it comes to photography and things like that.
The three words that came up while you were talking is first is honesty, second is listening, and third is understanding.
Yeah, yeah. So
I don't know if that resonates,
definitely,
but that's kind of came up.
yeah. So I'd say that honesty is definitely a big part into dealing with traumas, because you can't address something that you won't admit is there. And then once you're able to kind of put it out into the open, it's almost like you kind of find out that, oh, it's not even as big as it was in my mind, or, oh, I feel this way because this happened to me so long ago. And now every time something similar to it happens, it almost like triggers you and kind of makes you shut down. And it's only when you're able to talk to people as well that when you're able to like listen to them, you're able to kind of judge your own situation. Not like judge your situation, but like place it into what you thought it was to what the actual situation is. And I think that's very important when building relationships with people, not just like relationships, but any kind of relationship you have with people, whether it's romantic or friendship or like business, that if you're able to understand where someone is coming from, no matter what they kind of say, you kind of know that is who they are rather than your expectation of them, in a sense that you won't get offended or you won't shut down or you won't take things the wrong way if you're able to just listen to what's being said rather than how they say it as well. I think that's something I learned from my work, that sometimes people could be angry at you or they could be in a mood and it comes out like they're trying to attack you in some kind of way, but really it's just being able to like listen to what the message is rather than what they're actually saying. And it kind of allows people to calm down a lot and not project as much if you're just able to like, oh, you know what, I understand where you're coming from. And I feel like everyone just wants to be listened to.
Exactly. You took the words out of my mouth.
I saw you about to say it.
The last question I have is what's next, which you probably touched on a little bit about in your when I asked you about your projects, but yeah, what's next?
So what's next is I'm currently working on podcasts to do for the anniversary of the Britney Spears post. My intentions with it is that I could kind of draw in a lot of people who's doing similar projects or doing blogs or podcasts, and that we could kind of channel it all through that same medium. So I'm hoping that we could all use like Britney Spears' platform to kind of build our own platform as well, and then kind of help people around us. Yeah. So I think next month I'm definitely trying to connect with as much people as possible and just reach out and see if there's anything I could do to help or any people can help me as well.
Cool. Sounds really interesting. So thanks for your time. It's been wonderful chatting with you, and your journey has been so interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I appreciate you having me. It'll be good to see what happens next.
Thanks for listening to this episode with Jordon. I hope you enjoyed it. More information about Jordon, as well as the podcast, can be found in the episode notes. If you're able to, please rate and review the podcast in the podcast apps and spread the word. In the next episode, I speak with Betty Laura Zapata, who's a Venezuelan documentary photographer based in London, England. She focuses on long-term projects that document social issues, political conflict, health, immigration, and gender violence. Here's a short clip of our conversation.
The other big project was in Colombia, and I worked with victims of acid attacks. It was a very shocking story, but I think personally it gave me so many lessons in life, not just as a photographer, but also as a woman, as a listener. You know, it's this moment when you start to feel very connected to the women that have been through these kind of tragedies, and I think it give you this, you know, like almost like a kind of a different love from people and respect for people that has been through any tragedy.
I look forward to you joining me in the next episode with Betty.